roll of dipstick. Look at the dipstick, and if you know, a rule of thumb, I've been saying, if I change the oil once a year, or 2,500 or 3,000 miles, whichever comes first. So right now, that is break-in oil in there. That's 30 weight.
What makes it break-in oil?
Well, it's because it has 16,000 parts per million of zinc.
Oh yeah.
This is really, really good break-in oil. Okay, this really does help seat the rings and rotate the cam lifters and so on. How long do you run break-in oil? And that was a question. I have my opinion, but I don't know the true answer.
My process,
Yeah.
about 20 minutes at about 2,500 RPM.
Okay, breaking in the camshaft. Yes.
Yeah, other than that, you don't need to,
Keep running it.
there's nothing else really to break in.
Yeah.
50% of your wear on any motor is within the first 500 miles of its life. The rest of it is your total life, so 50% of your wear goes away in the first 500 miles.
How long would you run break-in oil then?
I'd probably run it the first 500 miles and dump it and put some good oil in it. That's if I had the right weight, break-in oil and what have you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because you need to actually get that all honed and then drained out. Make sure you warm your motor up real good. Go out and run it around the block a few times to make sure you get all the oil mixed up real good, and then come back and immediately pull the plug so all of it runs out.
Good.
And then you can start all over.
I agree. That's a really good way to do it. Yes, Kristen.
I had a question. Our oil, we're checking at the oil level. It's really dark. It's almost sludge-like dark. So
Yeah,
it
change
looks,
the oil then.
Yeah, time to
yeah,
change it.
well, but that goes back. It was just changed. I mean, I don't think not even a few months ago.
How many miles?
Not very.
Go by what you see. If you got problems with your motor and it's blackening up, you need to change it. Maybe you put something in it that somebody else didn't, and it loosened it all up inside the motor. High detergent will clean a motor out, and it'll also make your oil dirty. So when you see your oil dirty, change it.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing you can't do in reality is burn or use dirty oil in a transmission, and it's only lucky that the motor and the transmission even stay together at all. So in most reasons you'd want to change your oil is for the poor transmission more than anything, but nonetheless would aid the motor as well.
Oil and filter is always cheaper than a rebuild.
I just didn't know. I guess my question I was posing that is I didn't know if these cars run different than like my Neo Mini.
Yes.
The motor oil's
Yes.
doing
It
three
goes-
things. It's got 3 jobs in these things. It's your engine oil, it's your transmission oil, it's your differential oil.
Okay.
So it's doing triple duty. There's probably no car on the planet that is more abusive to motor oil than a Mini.
I hear that.
So Minis are very, yeah.
That's the reason why you got to use really good oil in them in the first place to keep them living. Use Pennzoil, you probably get 50,000 miles out of it before you have to rebuild it. If you use Valvoline, you might get 150,000 miles out of it without too much trouble.
I'd love to see a classic A series Mini engine go 150,000 miles.
No, I don't know. I think Doan says he had 150,000 miles on one of his rebuilds or whatever, one time or another.
Amazing.
Do it right. I think you can get it out of it. Now you change your oil at the right intervals and stuff like that. You can get it out of it.
And it depends on your driving habits.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't want to run at 9,000 RPMs all the time or whatever. Take it easy. If you're going to the grocery store and you're like an old lady, you can make them last.
It's
Well,
a
I
Mini.
am not an old lady, but
Well, just wait a few years, you'll get there.
Hey,
I could think on the other side of that car.
Come
work.
on.
yeah, you want to hit him, you're welcome to it. We'll hold him down.
Yeah.
I'll move down
One
to
other
that, okay.
one other question I haven't heard it.
You, all right.
One other question I haven't heard anybody ask is synthetic
Oh yeah.
oil.
Yeah. You know, I have not been a fan of synthetic oils in Mini Coopers for a long time, but my opinion has changed. And that's the key word there, opinion. Okay. Typically, when I was using Redline, Royal Purple, Mobil 1 any of those synthetics, you know, they're very they're very watery. They felt very thin, and I think the word is thixotropic. All right, and they tended to not only leak oil, but the bulk rings and the synchros, it was so good that my transmission would crunch.
Too slippery.
It's
Yeah,
too
you
good.
can't get the synchro ring to dig into the hub and make the gears synchronize. So basically, it's just too good for the transmission. Basically,
Yeah.
So good oil.
I quit using synthetic
For
for
the
that
motor.
reason, but then something happened. I tried this AMSOIL 2050 Z-Rod, and it has high zinc in it, and my Moke has a second and third gear crunch. You know, if I drove it in anger, you know, especially autocrossing and farting around at a PIR, I put this in it, and I was not a fan of synthetic. I'm like, no, I don't want to put synthetic in it. It's just going to make that crunch worse. But I also noticed that it's really thick, like honey, and it's synthetic. And I've never seen a synthetic motor oil that was thick, you know. And
You're not looking very hard.
when I put it in, I went for a drive, and that second and third gear crunch is completely gone. I lost it, and I went, okay, all right, I'm a fan. That's cool. So I've been using this, and I really like it.
Do you know what their chemistry is?
I have a data sheet.
Yeah.
reason that
Yeah.
works is it does not have friction modifiers in it.
Well,
Is that why it works in the transmission? Ah. See that there's a thing hanging there, the booklet.
oh, okay.
So anyway, I tried that. I really liked it, and I've been a fan ever since. And Andy, you run AMSOIL, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you like
Oh
it?
yeah. It's,
Oh, you do you
You
too?
did me, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I love it. It shifts way better.
Okay. So it's not just in my
No,
head.
no, it made a noticeable difference.
Yeah. And we haven't had any oil leaks. You know, I mean, the traditional one. But on a new motor, the motors we've been pumping out of here haven't leaked a drop. Nothing. But we're also using some really good sealant and gaskets. Word.
Whenever, if you like to charge them gaskets, I guess you got to use them.
Yes, absolutely.
Other than
Anyway.
that, I haven't found a whole lot of necessity to go beyond the head gasket and the primary gasket.
We could spend an afternoon talking to Word about gaskets. So
Next
let's
text session.
move on.
Next text.
Yeah, gaskets.
Schedule that.
Okay,
Alright.
so we've made sure we've got fresh gas. We've made sure that our battery is charged. We made sure that our engine oil is changed or ready. All right. Coolant. All right. How long does coolant last? Well, you know, modern coolants are good for 5 years. You know, anything over 5 years, really you should do a cooling system flush. But if it's questionable, drain it. It's cheap. Radiators are actually fairly cheap too. You know, and nobody. I heard Jay Leno talk about this. He's like, why don't people just replace the radiator? It's, you know, well, if your radiator's rotten and old, replace it. If your coolant is old, replace it. It's that simple. So check your coolant level. Check that it's fresh or that it's at least, you know, younger than 5 years.
Yeah,